There's two things to this job I wanted to cover because this is a hard nut to crack, almost as hard to understand as one of Biden's speeches or that new bonehead he got for a press secretary that doesn't understand English. But anyway, the front spring hangers on this truck, they are a daunting job because there's two elements you have to make this stew. Number one, the bed's got to be off the truck. Okay, that's number one. And then what's not there is the fuel tank, because you're going to have to bolt this in. And then these are gussets I made for carrying firewood. I broke part of it over there where I had it welded. I have to weld that back in. The pressure from the bolts, I put a seam sealer in the frame so the frame does not rot out. Well, it kind of squashed that seam sealer. It never, it's the type of seam sealer that does not dry. So therefore you won't get any rot underneath it. It stays flexible. It's just one of my peeves. Because this frame was bad enough, as you can see, I still got descaling work to do on the inside of the frame, here and there. But we're not there yet. I want to get the spring hangers on. And the number three thing, besides those other two elements to the stew, is this bolt. If your truck's ever been off-roading or you've been in an accident, and this bolt gets tweaked from the spring, maybe of the tire, maybe somebody ran into... that's what happened over there, was somebody ran into the side of me. That's how that bed that was on the truck got on it. That's why it was rotted out. It was just what I could afford at the time after the truck got hit. So that is one of those things that this bolt here came out relatively easy. This one over here, I had to use the old fire wrench on it, the smoke wrench, whatever Derek calls it. I call it the fire wrench. This bolt was a real bastard, and as you can see, I smothered it in the cheapo anti-seize, which if the truck does get hit, and as much money as I have in this thing and all the welding, I plan on keeping her around for a while. So we're going to get that spring hanger on today. And the other part of the stew, where I know you don't need to see me, this is how that spring hanger sat over there. And as you can see, I kind of cannibalized it. This is the right side up. Okay, so what I did, so I can get my grinder, because you can take these bolts out several ways. You can torch the rivets rather out, or you can drill them out, or you can take my lazy route and just grind them off, which saves $1 for one of those grinding blades to all that gas you're going to use with a torch and all that. You might as well just use one or two of those grinding blades at $1 and take your time with it. And wear your personal protective gear. It's one thing I am staunch on. But that's how I cut it apart, so I could get my grinder in there, because you got that bed support right there in close proximity. So these things can be a daunting matter. And nobody on YouTube has replaced front spring hangers. You get all of this easy stuff right here. And even this with the bed on is not a piece of cake. But getting that bolt in up front there, I had to loosen these back bolts, and I had to be able to move my spring with a drift pin to get this bolt back in. In other words, I had to go inside here with a drift pin, and I had to pull the front spring hanger, because as soon as it came loose from the hanger, this spring shot backwards. So I was about an inch away from even being able to make contact. So loosening this bolt and that bolt allowed me to be able to roll the spring forward. And Holly Ann is getting her smile on her face. After all these years, she's coming together nicely. As I said, I got to work on the fuel system, but priorities are priorities. Okay, I'm kind of broke, and I don't start my winter job till October. It's when I go to work on my winter job. I just spoke to them, as a matter of fact, a couple minutes ago. A fella out there needs a hand with something. He's coming here because they can't handle it out there. And that's what people do, is they dump those jobs that take a little bit of extra finesse or time on me, which that's a compliment to me. Because, hey, the guy takes his time with his work. He's good at what he does. As I said, for a backyard mechanic, which I'm not really, I work at some pro shops, but it's only part-time. As I said, the shops, like the guy that called me, he couldn't pay me what I was worth full-time plus benefits. Those $40 an hour jobs, you think you want to take your car to these dealerships now that are paying $10, $15 an hour for a mechanic? Think who is working on your car. Learn to do more for yourself. That's my advice. Because if not, you're going to end up with, what is it, Karine Jean-Pierre? She's going to be working on your car, telling you she knows what she's doing. You can obviously tell she's delusional. And I've had that where I've had my vehicles. I talked to the guy and he's like, what the hell are you trying to tell me? They were trying to tell me something about my brake caliper was bad. I said, no, more than likely that brake caliper was replaced a year ago. You need a caliper. I said, no, I need a brake line. We went back and forth. I said, put the fucking keys in the truck. I jumped in the truck. I went home. I put a new brake line on it. I took it back. I said, now inspect my truck. Whoa, 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 what was? What do you mean, what was it? I told you it was the brake line. I said, these calipers are brand new. Well, we get them and they're bad brand new. Well, good for you. The caliper worked up until I left the truck sit. I don't drive. I can't possibly drive 3 or 4 trucks. That's why the other ones are tucked away down at my dad's place in the basement, bomb shelter, garage, whatever you want to call it. Because they're not going to absorb moisture in that garage, or like my other trucks are in the other garage over here and that stuff like that. I keep my stuff, but to the best of my ability. But there is stuff like my van sits out because it's too large for any of the garages, or you know, my dad's place. It's just a big hippopotamus, and I need my hippopotamus from time to time to help me. We're just starting to get to do my roofs here. We fixed the front one. We're going to get metal for the back one over the winter. I'm starting my winter with a $2,000 negative deficit from these projects, so it's going to cost you money. If I did getting back to the spring hangers, what I want to tell you about, instead of tooting my horn like, I don't want people to think like I'm trying to be Mr. I try to be a humble guy. These spring hangers, if somebody's going to do a job like this, my best advice is take the bed off, and it's still probably going to cost you $200 or $300 for them to drop the tank out of the truck. And like I said, those spring hangers, the back ones are a breeze because they're basically in a static position. Those are not in a static position when the spring can move back and forth like it does. When that's detached, you can actually move the shackle to the spring, because that would have been my next best choice would have been to disconnect the spring from the shackle area. So I need people, there's very little on this job, and it's not as easy a job as it is replacing the back spring hangers. Okay? Summer's over, winter's coming, and if somebody wants to buckle down to this job and say, I can get my buddies or my brother-in-law, we can get the bed off, and we're going to go to it. You know, drop the tank out, take your time. The first thing is if somebody's been there before, and there's a video like this illustrating the steps, like cutting the spring hanger, dissecting it, especially if the bolt is stuck in there, you know, you're still going to need your torch, your smoke wrench, fire wrench, whatever you want to call it again. So that is the way you go about the job. If somebody's been there before you, it makes your job a hell of a lot easier, because then you know you need this tool, you need this tool, and one of these. If that bolt is in there after you heat it up, this baby was the only thing that would get that bolt out of there, because I wailed on it with I had with my little 10-pound maul. It wouldn't budge with the 10-pound maul, and I'm talking to quite a few. I figured before I destroy this bolt or bend this bolt, I went and I heated it up again real good, and I quenched it with water. Okay, that trick does work, because the bolt, it just about flew out of it. Whereas before, like I said, in that static state that it was in, and the hanger was cocked, I couldn't get the bolt out. So if that bolt's slightly cocked, maybe say from an accident or something like that, you're in quite a bit of trouble. I'm going to get my camera inside. I got to shut it off. We're starting to get a little bit of a drizzle. It's not going to daunt me from doing this. I want to get this spring hanger cut apart and get it off my truck. This job, we're having periods of rain, which Uncle Dutch is not going to piss and moan about rain, because my lawn, it was just about turning into cinders. I got to get my camera in. Thanks.